I offered to host my in-laws after their house flooded. I cleaned, cooked, gave up my bedroom. A week in, my mother-in-law told me, "You're lazy, and this house is filthy." Then she threw out my grandmother's china. When I asked why, she smiled and said, "You'll never be real family." I didn't argue. I just called a locksmith and watched them bang on the door in the rain. My name's Rachel. I live in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I've been married to my husband Caleb for 5 years. We don't have kids, but we've been trying. Until all this happened, things were pretty steady between us. We both work full-time. I'm a medical assistant. Caleb works in a tire warehouse. It's not glamorous, but we pay our bills and live in a decent 3-bedroom house just outside town. Caleb's parents, Richard and Barbara, live about 40 minutes away in a house near Lake Lure. We never had a close relationship. They always kept their distance from me. Barbara especially. The kind of woman who asks, "Oh, you work there?" like it's a disease. I always smiled through it. I figured, hey, she's my husband's mom. I can be polite. Then one night, we got a call that changed everything. Barbara was yelling into the phone, water running in the background. The basement's flooded. It's coming in through the foundation. We're losing everything. Caleb put her on speaker, and I could hear Richard in the background yelling about the breaker panel. I didn't think. I just reacted. "Tell them to come here," I said.
Right now.
We have space. It felt like the right thing to do. They're family, right? They showed up the next morning with 2 soaked suitcases and their elderly golden retriever. Max, Caleb, and I had cleaned the house late into the night. I gave them our bedroom because it had the only king-size bed and a private bathroom. I moved our clothes into the guest room and stripped the bed myself. I even bought fresh flowers for the nightstand. I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted to be kind. Barbara walked in and looked around. Her mouth turned down like she smelled something bad.
Well.
Smaller than I expected. Not "thank you." Not "we appreciate it." Just that. I brushed it off. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe she was just tired. But the tone was already set. The first 2 days weren't terrible, just uncomfortable. Barbara sat on the couch most of the day watching TV. She hated our Roku remote and asked me every morning to set up the news. When I cooked, she gave me that look like she was judging every spice I used. She complained about the coffee being too bitter. She told me the bath towels were rough. She said our dog-free house smelled like wet fur, even though it was clearly Max. Richard barely said anything. He just grunted and followed Barbara around like a ghost. By the 3rd day, I noticed a pattern. I'd sweep and mop in the morning. Barbara would follow behind with a wet rag and say, "You missed a spot." I'd make dinner. She'd pick at it, then microwave frozen chicken nuggets and sigh dramatically as she chewed. One morning I made blueberry pancakes. I thought maybe if I did something nice, we could have a better day. She didn't even look up from her phone. Just pushed the plate back and said, "Too sweet." Still, I said nothing. Then came the passive-aggressive comments. Caleb used to keep a much cleaner bathroom. Back when he lived with us, he always made his own lunches. I guess women today don't learn the same things. It was every day, but I kept my mouth shut. I just kept telling myself, this is temporary. Just get through it. Then it all exploded. It was a Thursday. I had gone grocery shopping because Barbara said we were out of real food. I left her and Richard alone at the house. Caleb was at work. When I got home, something felt off right away. The hutch in the dining room. My grandmother's hutch was open.
You walked over slowly.
The china was gone. I felt dizzy. My grandma raised me after my mom left. She died 3 years ago. The china was hers. She'd saved up for years to buy it. She only used it twice a year, Easter and Thanksgiving. When she died, it was the one thing I asked for. I never used it. I just kept it safe. I found Barbara in the kitchen, stirring a cup of tea. Calm, like nothing had happened. I asked, "Where's my china?" She didn't even look up.
"Oh, that?"
I tossed it. It was old and cracked. I froze. "You what?" "I threw it out," she said again. Don't worry, it wasn't worth anything. Probably lead in the paint anyway. My voice was shaking. That was my grandmother's. It was the only thing I had from her. Barbara finally looked at me. She smiled. Maybe if you acted like family, I'd have treated you like family, but you'll never really be one of us. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked into the guest room and locked the door. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. Caleb came home late. I didn't tell him. I couldn't yet. I needed to get my head straight first. The next morning, I waited until Barbara and Richard took Max for a walk. I called a locksmith, told him I needed every lock changed fast.
Front door, back door, garagedeur kipat.
By noon, it was done. They came back around 1. It had started to rain again. I watched from the front window as Barbara tried the door, then tried again. I saw Richard step up behind her. Then the knocking started. Then the pounding. Rachel. Barbara screamed. What the hell is this? I opened the window just a crack. You need to find another place. You're not staying here anymore. You're out of your mind. Open this door. No, I said. You threw away something that mattered more than anything. And you've done nothing but insult me. I don't owe you anything. She banged her fist against the glass. You ungrateful bitch. I closed the window. 2 hours later, Caleb came home. I sat him down and told him everything. Every comment. Every insult. What she did with the china. He sat there in silence for a long time. Then he got up, grabbed his keys, and left.
He stayed with them that night.
I didn't know if he was coming back. Next morning, he showed up alone. He said, "We need to talk." We've been talking ever since. But things aren't the same. I don't know if they ever will be. After Caleb came back that morning, we sat in silence for a long time. He looked tired. Not just physically, he looked drained, like something inside him had cracked. I need to know something, I finally said. Did you know what she did? About the china? He shook his head.
No.
She told me you overreacted and threw her out for no reason. Said you were being unstable. I almost laughed. Of course she did. He rubbed his face with both hands. Rachel. I didn't know. But I can't lie to you. She's been like this for years. Controlling. Always pushing people's buttons. I kept thinking she'd ease up on you. I kept thinking if I stayed out of the way, you two would work it out. That hit me hard. You stayed out of the way while she tore me down. In my own house. He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He just nodded. I need to make something clear, I said. If she ever comes back here, if she even sets foot on this porch, I'm leaving. I won't let that happen again, he said quietly. We tried to move on, but the house felt heavy. Even with them gone, their presence stuck to the walls like smoke. Caleb started coming home later and later. Some nights, he'd go straight to bed without saying much. I knew he was stuck between me and his mother, but I didn't have any more patience left. Then, a week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No writing. Just this. You've always been poison. I hope Caleb realizes before it's too late. Families can forgive blood, but you'll never be one of us. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a signature. Barbara. I showed it to Caleb when he got home.
He looked at it for a long time.
Then he folded it in half, walked outside, and lit it on fire in the grill. But that wasn't the end. 3 days after that, I was pulling into the driveway after work and saw a car I didn't recognize parked across the street. A red Ford Fusion. It sat there, engine running, windows tinted. I parked slowly. As soon as I turned off the ignition, the car sped off. Next day, same thing. I knew it was her. Watching. Waiting. Maybe trying to catch Caleb alone. Maybe hoping to see me lose it. When I told Caleb, he said, "I'll talk to her." But I said no. I was done playing nice. This wasn't about politeness anymore. So, I started keeping a notebook by the door, writing down the time, color, plate number when I could. I installed cameras front door, back porch, driveway. I made sure she knew I saw her. Then, the twist I didn't expect. One night, I was going through the camera footage from that afternoon. I caught her again, in that same red Ford. She wasn't alone. She was in the passenger seat. Richard was driving. And in the back seat?
Caleb.
I froze. I must have watched the footage 10 times. There was no mistaking it. That was Caleb, sitting in the back seat of his parents' car, just a block from our house. He hadn't said a word to me about seeing them. Nothing. I stared at the screen, feeling sick. I thought we were trying to rebuild trust. I thought we were working through it. He'd been sneaking around behind my back. He came home 2 hours later. I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. I needed to hear it from him. At dinner, I asked, "Did you see your parents today?" He looked up slowly.
No. Why?
I stared at him. "You're lying." He put his fork down. "Rachel." I saw the camera footage, Caleb. You were in the car. With them. His face went pale. "Why would you lie to me?"
He sighed.
"Because I knew how you'd react. And I didn't want another fight." "So, you just went behind my back?" "It wasn't like that. They asked to talk. I didn't go to their house. We met in a parking lot. I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd lose it. Damn right I'd lose it," I said, standing. "After what she did to me. To this house? And you're riding around with her like nothing happened." "She's still my mother," he said quietly. "And I'm your wife." He didn't say anything. I grabbed the keys and walked out. Drove around for an hour before pulling into an old gas station parking lot and just sitting there. I felt humiliated. Betrayed all over again. When I came home, Caleb was asleep on the couch. Or pretending to be. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about how Barbara got exactly what she wanted. She divided us. She ruined something, and now she was dragging him back into her web. The next day, while Caleb was at work, I decided to go check our shared storage unit. We'd kept some things there from when we moved in together. Extra furniture, photo albums, keepsakes. I hadn't been there in a few months. I just had a feeling. When I opened the roll-up door, I stood in shock. Boxes were missing. 2 shelves were completely empty. One of them had held my childhood keepsakes. Photo albums, yearbooks, letters from my grandma. The other had old kitchenware, including a box I knew had the matching serving platter to the china Barbara destroyed. I pulled out the inventory list I'd made the last time I organized it. 10 items were missing. Someone had been here. There was only one person who had the spare key besides Caleb and me.
Barbara.
I called Caleb at work. "You gave her the key to the storage unit?" He was silent. "Caleb, I need you to say it." "She asked for it," he finally said. "Said she needed to grab something she left there last year." "I didn't think. You didn't think," I snapped. "That's the problem. You never think when it comes to her. You just hand over anything she asks for." I hung up. I changed the lock on the storage unit that day. I filed a police report, non-emergency, but I wanted a record in case anything else went missing. I called my sister and told her everything. I needed someone on my side who wasn't emotionally tied to Caleb. Then the real twist came 2 days later. I got a text from an unknown number. "Check the back porch. She left you something." I ran to the back door. Nothing. I walked outside, looked behind the bushes. There, sitting in a black trash bag, was what was left of my photo albums. Ruined.
Vet.
Molded. Pages torn out. And tucked inside a note. "Should have stayed out of the family business." I went straight inside and called the police. This wasn't passive-aggressive anymore. This was war. The officer who came to the house that night was young, maybe late 20s. He listened as I told him everything about the storage unit, the trash bag, the ruined photos, the note. I showed him the camera footage from the last few days. Even the video of Caleb in the car with his parents. When I showed him the soggy, torn albums, he looked angry. "We can't prove who did it without direct footage," he said, "but this is harassment. And I'm filing this as a report. If anything else happens, call me directly." He handed me his card and left. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the note again. Should have stayed out of the family business. What did that even mean? Was this about Caleb? About me? About the fact that I refused to take her abuse quietly? I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did something else. I made a copy of every bit of evidence I had, screenshots, video, texts, that letter Barbara sent in the mail. I printed them, stapled them together, wrote a short summary. Then I put it in an envelope and dropped it off at Caleb's job during lunch break. I didn't say a word. I didn't include a note. I just left it with the receptionist. That night, he didn't come home. The next morning, he texted me. I'm staying at their place. I need space. That told me everything. She had him back. It wasn't just about me now.
It was about control.
Barbara didn't just want me out of the picture. She wanted to be the woman at the center of Caleb's life again. She was winning, unless I did something. So I called a lawyer. I want to know what my options were: protection order, divorce, property claims. The lawyer was sharp, calm, and didn't flinch when I told her the whole story. She said, "You have grounds for everything. And if you want, we can hit back hard." I wasn't sure what I wanted. I still loved Caleb.
Or I thought I did.
But I also knew this couldn't keep going. Then came the final blow. I found out from a mutual friend who worked at the town permit office that Barbara had been poking around asking about property records, specifically our house. My name was the only one on the deed. Caleb never added his after we got married. It was something we said we'd do later. We just never got around to it. Barbara must have found that out and realized she had no claim. Caleb had no claim. She was fishing, maybe hoping to find a way to take it, maybe to get me out. So I made the last call, to a realtor. A week later, the house was listed. Quietly. No big sign out front.
Just a listing on a few sites.
I didn't tell Caleb. I packed my things slowly. Every night, I filled another box. I stayed in the guest room, the one they had stayed in. It was poetic in a way. 2 weeks later, the house sold.
Cash buyer.
Young couple moving in from Charlotte. On my last night, I left a manila envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside it, divorce papers.
Signed.
And a letter that said this: "You let her throw out my memories. Then you let her tear us apart. I gave you every chance. You chose her. So now she can keep you. But she doesn't get my home. She doesn't get to win. Goodbye, Caleb. I hope you enjoy being her little boy again." I walked out, locked the door one last time, dropped the keys in the mailbox. 3 days later, I got a call from Caleb. I didn't answer. Then a text. "What did you do?" I blocked the number. I moved into a small rental outside of Asheville. Quiet neighborhood. No family drama. Last I heard, Barbara had a health scare. Caleb had to leave work to care for her full-time. He's still living in that old ranch house near Lake Lure, the one that flooded. Funny how things come full circle. He got what he wanted. And so did I.
Peace.
Finally.